Hi, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to our book study, The Gospel of Thomas. It's so good to see you and be with you today. And we didn't get very far last week, right? We only looked at three things, but boy, was it fun. And we had a lot of people that were commenting how much they liked it. And thank you for your comments by email. And today we're going to start looking at sayings four, and I'm just going to say four plus. So if you would like to be the co-host for saying four, just raise your hand and I'll invite you to read what the saying said and then the interpretation from Cameron McColl. So don't hesitate to raise your hand if you want to be the first one to share from the saying. I'll give it a minute so that I don't just I don't want it to just be me. It needs to be us, all of us. Saying four. It's on page four. Don't everybody rush to the mic all at once. I'm not sure why I'm not getting the gallery view. Something happened where I'm not seeing gallery view. Not sure why. Hmm. It just seems to have me pinned to it. Maybe I need to remove oh, there we go. If I remove the spotlight, there I am. Okay, so now it's all of us. And uh, now I don't see any hands up. I don't see all of your hands up yet. My controls don't, or seem to be, oh, there we go. There we go. Okay, so I'll get started since there's so many of you jumping to the microphone. uh, Jesus said, the man old in days will not hesitate to ask a small child 7 days old about the place of life, and he will live. For many who are first will become last, and they will become one and the same. So it's kind of a cryptic one. Maybe that's why not so many people jump to the to the mic all at once. But we thankfully we have Cameron's interpretation. When we become when we become wise and undress ourselves, and when we are open and slough off, I'm not familiar with that word slough, and slough off the false layers of identity accumulated over a lifetime, then through grace, we are shown our true identity. We become humble and open to seeing the truth whenever it may be found. Those who in ignorance believe themselves to be body minds, whether they be leaders or followers in the world, shall achieve equality in death. Now, I didn't really quite get that last piece, shall achieve equality in death. And so I'm open to listening to what your take on that was. My take that would add to the saying is that Jesus said, the man old in days will not hesitate to ask a small child 7 days old. This is my interpretation is that the man old in days who recognizes their own innocence in this small child 7 days old um, where it says will not hesitate to ask, I take that as will not hesitate to contemplate the innocence of this child. And this is what happens for most of us, that, you see this small little 7 day or week old or month old, you see this small little beautiful innocent child, and somehow it reflects your own innocence back to yourself. And from there, I think there's a transmission, even in a subtle way. And it says in the last part, the last sentence, for many who are first will become last, and they will become one and the same. And so, in my mind, that connected, subtle energy transmission is where we don't think it, but that somehow we realize our oneness with this innocence. And that's the take I got, a little deeper take on it. And that's why, if you were here for Cameron's introduction and the first our first talk with Cameron as the author, you'll remember that he really likes to use that word grace, and he really brought it to life. And I think, and this is why I think it's so interesting to hear everyone's take on these different sayings besides Cameron's, because I feel like each of us will have our own little insight and flavor for these sayings that will be unique to us, and also just a deeper way of looking at it with our own insight. And thank you, Jan, for raising your hand and coming to the mic. Please go ahead.
Morning, Bill, and everybody else who's here.
Hi.
I put in a little note in the chat when you first started there to explain what that word meant.
Oh,
You
it's
can tell I'm a
fluff?
teacher. I'm it's pronounced slough, like enough, slough
Oh,
off.
okay.
And it just means to shrug it off,
Okay.
you
Okay,
know.
good. Good. Yeah.
Okay. Um, this one in number 4 really resonated with me because I was a kindergarten and first grade teacher for 30 years. And so I never hesitated to ask my little kids, what do you think about this? Because they had the most unique perspective on life in the world. They're in their little innocence. They would just let it all out and tell you probably more than you ever wanted to know about themselves and their families. But sometimes you have to get rid of all of these years of conditioning and the masks we put on and the fences we put up and everything to be able to see what the truth is. And in Cameron's comments there, that's exactly how I would describe myself in what's it been now, 3 or 4 years since I've known about you and Lisa. I'm 79 in Earth years. So I'm getting up there, and I really had an awful lot of indoctrination and just I had no idea that I was so far off the mark. I've told you before, I have a Christian background.
Hmm.
Um, and so that's what I'm experiencing right now. It feels like I'm just getting rid, just sloughing off all of these layers of things that I have uh, gathered through the years as part of my identity. I'm sloughing that off. And now I'm learning about my true identity, my true self, the real me. And I never liked myself very much. In fact, when Lisa gave us a little in the 40-day program, we were supposed to look in the mirror every day and say, I love you. I could not do that. I did not love myself. But then when I realized, Jan, you're saying you don't love God because you are God. You know, your whole total self is God. And I always thought I really loved God. You know, I placed him above everything else. And there I go again. See, placed him above myself. Instead, I found out that I can think about myself now with great love and acceptance. And so now, and that has to come first before you can turn around and love your neighbor as yourself. Because if you
Mm.
can't love yourself and who you really, really are, then you can't love other people. And if you haven't learned about what yourself is, how can you love yourself? So that's why I'm on this journey of exploration with you now in this book. And it's really opening my eyes to a lot of things. Thank you.
Nice. Thank you, Jan. Yeah, it's nice this is refreshing to hear past Christians, a Christian perspective, which I was for over 20 years, and it's nice to hear another Christian perspective that, is has released themselves from that dogma and sees the value of the teaching that was the teaching that was meant to be carried on, is to you are the light of the world, now walk in it. Now you're walking in it, right?
Right,
Yeah, yeah.
right.
And I love, Cameron also has that, that love for Jesus in his teaching. And I think we all kind of default to thinking there's a him, that there's a, even thinking that there's a Jesus is, we have to measure that, because Jesus is just a man that can't, that is embodied consciousness that embodies our own true nature, which is revealing itself to each of us through these teachings. Yeah. Well, thank you, Jan, for your input on this. This is awesome. We have another hand up. Rick, what would you add? Trying to unmute.
Hi,
There you
Bill.
go.
You hear me?
Hey. Yep.
Yeah, just a quick comment about the equality and death. His last statement.
Yeah.
Um, shall shall achieve equality and death. I would say that to me, it rings that a reminder that we are not children of young. We are not old. We are the absolute. We're that which never grows. Um, we're something that cannot grow. And at death, um, which equates to death. That's the realization of death. We're not something that's born. We're not a child. We're not an adult. It's not about trying to become a child. I think that's a misinterpretation. It's rather pointing to the identification of what we identified with prior to the age of, I don't know, 2 or so, that we're not the body. Uh, that's what it points to me. There's no
Right.
distinction between the body, mind, the world,
Right.
from the
So
perspective of it.
death is really my interpretation. It's my paradigm. Whatever meaning I'm putting on the word death is 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 where the interpretation differs, because it sounds like Cameron is using uh, followers in the world, be leaders or followers in the world, whether leaders or followers in the world shall achieve equality in death. So it's really just at the transition. If you would just change that death word to in transition, we all access our shared oneness.
Right.
Or
Or you could say death only means something from the perspective of a body mind. There is no death. From the
Exactly.
perspective of the absolute, death makes absolutely no sense.
Right.
So, I don't even see it as a transition. That would be becoming something.
Yeah.
Death is non-existent. Is one way of looking at it.
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah. Well, thank you for
Thanks,
that
Bill.
input, Rick. I appreciate that. And Angelina, you have your hand up. Is it for number 4, or are you interested in reading 5?
It
Hey,
was for 4. Hi.
okay.
What kind of what took me was kind of more like, where new agey meaning in that little paragraph. Because the only word that doesn't come totally for me is that it's for many and not for those. And instead of many, I would replace it for those. Like,
Oh,
it's
yeah.
like how I read it is like when the man is old, when he's reaching his death, it's kind of like the end of life, that he would not hesitate a small child like 7 days old, like someone who was just born, kind of like when we reach the end of our life, that's like kind of, to connect to someone who just began the life, kind of, because during our life we can forget our spirit, who we are with spirit, right? And like the baby who is just born still have that memory, that ancient, that memory that he came with, that he is, the eternal spirit, and not the body. And the person who lived all his life has forgotten that already, all the life lived have learned to identify with the body. So in a way, that small baby represent that memory that we came
Mhm.
from and then we lost. I said it's a bit new agey.
Right.
And then if I go like for those who are first, like the babies will become last, like we become old, and they will become one and the same, because essentially doesn't matter, you're a baby, you're an old man, it's who we are is spirit,
Yeah.
and who we
Yeah.
are is the same, one spirit.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Good. Yeah, like I said, we all resonate with different ways that it speaks to us, and we need to be just I want to just be open to that, how it speaks to you and how it resonates with you, and let that sing to your heart. I love hearing these sayings. It feels like we have a piece of the it wasn't um, like precise language, and we don't really know how it goes, how it was translated from Aramaic or Greek to English. So we don't really know for sure that these words are accurate.
Yeah, like what caught my attention was 7 days old. And in a way, in Jewish tradition, on the eighth day, they do, the circumcise.
Oh yeah, yeah.
So in a way, there is something symbolic in saying 7 days, because 7 days is kind of before the baby is officially kind of, in a way, I don't know, get affected by the world, you could say,
Well, the
Just
males, what happens to
the
the
males, yeah,
females?
it's more accurate about the males than the
Yeah,
females.
see, that's where they kind of got off the mark too. They referred always to the him and to the he, and I think that's off the mark 100%. But you're right, it is probably some, and Jesus wouldn't have been different. He was just a man that was awakened and sharing from that place of and he's only in his 30s, so he didn't really have a lot of years to mature even in his own understanding. If he'd have, lived to be 50 or 60, he would have been like, oh my God. Yeah. So yeah, that's another piece. It probably is symbolic to that 7 day period that was used by Judaism when the male was circumcised. Yep. Well, thank you, Angelina. Appreciate it. We have, I think, Sylvia, iPad guest. Is that Sylvia? I can't tell.
Yes, that's me. I
Okay.
don't really have an explanation for number 4, but when I
Okay.
read it, I was thinking, how could the people that he was speaking to even understand what it meant? What Jesus was saying to them, and so I mean, I didn't even understand it when I didn't understand it as I was reading it.
Yeah.
So, and then I thought about the Course in Miracles. Like I said, I'm just talking off the top of my head. And then thought about the Course in Miracles, and I thought, geez, again, it's hard to understand when you first start reading the book and the workbook. And so I don't know. It was, and then Cameron tried to explain it, and it wasn't any better than it really didn't explain it that well to me anyway.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was just
Yeah.
what I was thinking.
Yeah. Thank you, Sylvia. And that's true. This is I don't think the disciples did understand everything. Most of what he said, they got, according to the Gospels, they got a lot of it off. And Paul, as awake as he was totally off on a lot of things because he carried the teaching of a rabbi of Judaism in the tradition into the insights and the downloads that he was authentically getting. He didn't understand what he was getting. So it is good to have clarity around these things, and also to recognize, hell, I don't know what it means. How could they know what it meant? Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. All right. So we'll move on to 5. Would anyone like to read the saying for 5? Who wants to read that? Patricia, thank you. Go ahead. Hi.
Hi, good to be here. Nice to see you, my Bill.
Thank you. Thank you.
Number 5, Jesus said, recognize what is in your sight, and that which is hidden from you will become plain to you. For there is nothing hidden which will not become manifest. When we are able, and Cameron says, when we are able to truly recognize the objects in front of us, we are also able to recognize ourselves, for we are not objects. When any object is seen for what it truly is, then all objects, subtle or gross, indeed the entire universe and everything in it, are also seen. The reality is seen, which is consciousness itself. That word consciousness is incredible because it's always there, it's always perfect, it's perfection. It's a consciousness of oneness, of love. That's how I see consciousness. And that consciousness, when we are little, has not been contaminated with all of the things that happen after you're 7 days old. You get your parents' upbringing, all the things that they believe in, whatever church or non-church they go to, whatever. It piles on and it piles on. And we get the word warped, popped right into my mind. And that's one of the things I believe is what Jesus meant when he said, lest you become as little children, you will never enter the kingdom of heaven. Because little children don't have all the hangups that we do, that we've we've developed. And then as we grow older and we take courses and classes and do things like what I did with you and Lisa, and study the Course in Miracles and all the other things that bring us into a deeper consciousness of who we are, that we really are God's hands and feet. Where we stand is holy ground. We are spiritual beings who took on physical form this lifetime. And that is such a wonderful revelation. And it doesn't make us, like when Jan was saying that she couldn't love herself. I felt that way for a long, long time when I was young, a very long time. And when I was doing the 40 days and I had to look in the mirror and say that, what I was looking at was every wrinkle, this and that, and all these crazy things. And I thought, this is not what Lisa and Bill mean at all. And so I finally came to terms by the end of the 40 days that, Patricia, that's not who you are. You're not that face. Look beyond. Look beyond.
Yeah.
Look within.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. And what really what he was referring to is when we recognize what is in your sight and that which is hidden from you will become plain to you. It's pay attention. Most of us don't pay attention to what is aware of the experience. And so we think we are the experience, and we become merged with the object of experience and its subject object. And it's when we have understanding that we're subject first, and this is an object that changes, but I never change. And just like that baby that never changes, I mean, what the innocence of that, the essence of that child before the conditioned layers are added to it, that essence, it never changes. It's not different today than it was when you were 7 days old or a day old. The essence is the same. The only thing that's added or changed is what's been added to that. The essence is still there. And so when he says, for there is nothing hidden which will not become manifest, in my mind, he's moving to the there's nothing hidden that isn't realized. There's nothing hidden that's not that doesn't rise out of this consciousness. Everything rises out of this consciousness, which is the subject, which is what we realize when we have this understanding. So, anyone else have anything else, or do you have anything else? Oh, Rick has his hand up. Thank you, Patricia.
Yeah, real quick, Bill, my twist on it, this one simply as stated, it means seeing the self in absolutely everything. When he says your sight or hidden from you, the your and the you he's referring to obviously is not the individual you. He's referring to consciousness itself.
Yeah.
And if something exists, if something is manifested, it has to be manifested within a greater context. That's consciousness. So in that light, absolutely, it's impossible for anything to be hidden. He's not talking about hidden from the individual mind. Okay. He's talking about hidden from awareness, not the individual. That's how I interpret it. Not the individual mind, but from consciousness itself. If something, if there's an arising, an objectification, it happens within consciousness, within awareness. It's accepted automatically, not to be confused with mind, individual. I think sometimes that's an error as I interpret it.
Yeah. And what Cameron said in that second half of that paragraph When any object is seen for what it truly is, then all objects, subtle or gross, indeed the entire universe and everything in it, are also seen. So as one realizes that there's only one thing happening, there's only consciousness, and when one sees that, everything is included. Nothing is separate. Everything is whole and complete. And it gives us a different way of seeing and also addressing our experience in the world. Yeah. And it is the beginning that the subject object is what helps us to extricate or to step back away from our emotional experiences. Once we have understanding, we can remain as the subject, not tethered to the object of experience that pulls us in and causes reaction based on the way we were raised mostly.
Yeah. Yeah. Because for me, Bill, there's such a strong tendency to dummy this down to the individual personal me. There's such a strong tendency. That's like the default position, the identification with the individual rather than the greater context of what we are.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Rick. And looks like Jude has her hand up. Hi, Dr. Jude, Dr. Jude. How are you?
For Divine Radiance.
Yes.
Diana Rushcheck. Thank you, Bill.
Oh, hi, Diana.
Good to see you.
Welcome. I've seen your name many times, but I never got the name of what DR is.
Desiring not to project an image of myself. That's why I stay off video.
Oh, good. Okay.
Okay, so yes, we all have this personal understanding, this intimate understanding of how we see, and I think the Course helped me to discern what vision was looking through, quote unquote, God's eyes. It's looking through the heart, and in studying the Course and reading that consciousness itself was the fall from this, from God in his oneness, in his absolute reality, capital reality, of which I think the last person was referring to, that there's nothing other than God in that capital that. But in this instrument of perception, I can look through the body's eyes, which to me goes back to what you said, Bill, about, perception can be aware of things. There's a perceiver and that which is perceived as an object, subject and an object. And that's, really the gross separation. Now, the right thinking mind can think about unity and a state of grace and oneness, but to actually experience vision is knowable, because that is who we are in truth. And I know this from my own experience, that there is that ability to see and listen, and hear and speak to everything as myself, my capital self. That is the truth of who we are, that there is nothing other than that. But this is something that came to me. It wasn't something that Judy did or learned how to do. It was a gift that is begotten, given by God to whomever is gifted with it. And I study and practice in vigilance, so I'm grateful for the glimpses that I've gotten through it. And I love that word begotten, because it speaks to me of being the one Son in creation, as the entirety of creation, that I see everything as myself, that life is living through me, in me, and as me. It's
Yeah.
all the same. Enough out of me. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Jude. Thank you, Jude, Diane, and for your input. And yeah, it's beautiful. It's we each get our own sense of how this speaks to us. That's what I was saying. And it looks like we're going to move on to number 6. If anyone would like to read number 6, talking about his disciples, who would like to read that? Natasha, good to see you. Welcome.
Thank
Hi.
you, Bill. Hi. So, number 6, his disciples questioned him and said to him, "Do you want us to fast? How shall we pray? Shall we give alms? What diet shall we observe?" Jesus said, "Do not tell lies, and do not do what you hate, for all things are plain in the sight of heaven. But nothing hidden will not become manifest, and nothing covered will remain without being uncovered." The disciples ask Jesus, "How shall we live in the world?" Jesus says, "It's not your activities that matter, but your integrity. If you want to find the truth, then live openly, truthfully, knowing that all is seen, and follow happiness." I found this resonated with me. What came up for me was um, just to allow whatever it is come up. Don't try to bypass it. Let them come up, acknowledge them, and then they resolve. So it's a matter of just being honest with self. It's just looking at things and being honest with self, and that helps me to live with integrity. It doesn't always happen, but it's something that I practice and try. That's just what came up for me. I find with some of these verses, some resonate more with me than others, because some of the others I really don't quite understand. I don't really, it doesn't open my heart. I don't get it. I think having to reread them will help, but this is what sometimes things just jump out at me, and this did
Yeah.
for some
Yeah.
reason.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you, Natasha. That I felt the same way. I wrote a little note here. Bring everything from inner and outer to be seen in awareness without judgment. And in my mind, then the use of the word integrity, it's not talking about moral integrity. It's talking about be authentic to yourself, be honest with yourself, and don't leave anything. Also, when in the saying before uh, Cameron's interpretation, when he said, "Do not tell lies and do not do what you hate," uh, he's really talking about being watchful of our hidden thoughts and feelings, and don't leave anything buried for another day. Bring everything in, and face it and look at it. So he's really, in the question, his disciples are asking him, they're used to the traditional ways of fasting and doing, what to do on the Sabbath and all these different traditions and how to pray. And they're asking the master, "You're blowing our everything we thought we knew. How do we do? What do we do? Do we fast? Do we pray? How do we do these things?" And he's just really saying be authentic and don't keep things hidden. But also he's not saying you need to speak it either. He's just saying you need to own it, more or less. That's what I got out of it. Thank you, Natasha. It looks like Rick has his hand up too. Rick?
Yeah, real quick, Bill. This is a very interesting one. It almost seems like he's saying, this is not an important question in some regards, because he doesn't answer it directly. He kind of answers it like when we get to saying 14. where he implies, these activities can somehow create a false sense of self, because that's what they're used to, like you mentioned the Sabbath, what do we need to do? How? Tell me what to do. And he turns that all upside down. He's not talking about how to fast or how to pray, which he does address in 14. He says, just be honest, be, integrity. It's not about activities. Uh, I would add encourage, the importance of courage as well, not personal courage, um, um, but following your interest. But very interesting, and almost doesn't answer the question directly. He does in 14, unless they got out of order. But it's like this question's not important. Okay,
Right.
it's not about how to do anything. Be honest, follow your bliss and interest, and be happy. These other activities can deceive you and create a false sense of self if done for the wrong reasons.
Yeah. But he also gives inference to cause and effect and karma.
Yeah.
If you keep things hidden, it's going to come up. It's going to become manifest. And if you want to clear it up, you need to look at it. You need to bring it up.
Yeah. And like you said, it's completely different paradigm. His audience is used to, the Old Testament, all these rituals, what do we do and how do we do it? And he's saying that's not important. That's not the message. In fact, those can be problematic if not done from the heart. He's saying follow the heart. It's not about recipes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is a new way of looking at things entirely.
Entirely new. Yeah.
Right. Thank you,
I can
Rick.
see his disciples scratching their head,
Oh yeah. That's why they were so confused when he left early and and Rome was still there. The soldiers were still in charge. Yeah.
Yeah.
Kim?
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you. Hi, Kim.
Hi, Bill. Hi, everybody. I've put my hand up a couple of times and put it down again, but I felt to put it up about this, and I guess in response to what Rick's saying, and my heart is beating because I think like many of us, conflict is not one of my favorite things, and this could just be semantics and language. But to me, the essence of this piece, this number 6, is that it's not the what, it is the how. It's not what we eat. It's not what we say. It's not what we think. It's not what we do. It's how we do it with integrity. And I also, I was a member of Al-Anon, not AA, but I sat in on some open AA meetings. And I know that they have an acronym for how, the H standing for honesty, the O for openness, and the W for willingness. So when people in AA would say, well, how am I supposed to stay sober and how am I supposed to walk this path? The answer was with honesty, openness, and willingness. So I think the how is the point of this number 6. Myself, that's how it strikes me.
Right. Thank you, Kim. And that does sound like an accurate way to see it. It does sound like he gave a how. He just disregarded when they questioned him on what to do. Do you want us to fast? And he says in that second sentence, how shall we pray? So I think you also picked up on an accurate, a very direct way of asking, how shall we do these things now? And yeah, thank you for that. Thank you for that input. Jude, what do you have to add to that?
Oh, I've been redoing the lessons, and the introduction to the review lessons now speaks of this rituals and litanies that we practice, our practices, daily repetitions of prayers. And the word honesty is, in the Course is described as your thoughts match your words and match your actions. And that is the definition of integrity to me, that nothing within me conflicts with anything else, that I'm wholly true to the truth, and that I accept the way that I'm created, that I'm purely awareness or consciousness itself, purely mind, that I'm nothing temporal, that I'm changeless, and the way that God created me in truth. And if I'm honest to my thought system of how God created me, then I cannot be dishonest to anyone else. And the idea that I need not make myself holy, that I can't make myself holy by doing rituals or litanies, practices, prayers. I need not ask God for anything, because when he created me, already gave me everything. He gave me himself, and all of the universes of the universes are mine. This is what the words from the Course. And I really totally embrace that as a living and breathing truth. And so I need not pray for anything. And the Course also teaches that prayers should only be of praise and glory for the magnitude, the enormity, the gloriousness of who and what we are. And there's no fear in that perfect love, that there's no loss, there's no sacrifice, no demands asked from the universal capital giver. And in that, I stand in that house of truth in my mind. And so that's all, folks. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you. Thank you, Jude. Yeah, he didn't answer how shall we pray in this saying. Later on, I think the Apostle Paul said, pray without ceasing. And I don't even know if that was a directive. I think that was more of an imperative, that we always, because we're always sending a signal to the universe, to consciousness, from consciousness to consciousness. We're always praying without ceasing. So I think he does answer this later on, just not in this saying. And when we get to 14, we'll see what Rick's talking about, that sort of that maybe gives inference to more of the how that you mentioned. Thank you. Thank you, Jude. Or not that you mentioned, but that Kim mentioned. So let's move to number 7. Who would like to read The Lion? Oh, this one was a totally, I mean, I had to read this one 10 times to flip flop the lion and the man and the consuming. And does anyone have some good insight on this one? Yes, yes. Thank you, Michaela. Anyone want to read this that has super focused clarity? Okay, I'll read it. Jesus said, "Blessed is the lion which becomes man when consumed by man, and cursed is the man whom the lion consumes and the lion becomes man." And this is a kind of a mind fuck uh, uh, thing for me, but I'll read Cameron first, and then I'll ask Rick to come in on this. Cameron said, "The world is the lion, Maya. When truly seen, it is understood to be consciousness itself. When not seen, it becomes man's reality, and he is destined to a life of suffering. So that's as much as Cameron added to it. And I have some other things that I've added once I read it 10 times, but I want to hear what Rick has to say first. Rick?
Well, I agree, Bill. I had to read this several times, and I'm going, "Wow, who ate who, and what happened?" You know.
Right.
But in the end, to me, and Cameron kind of says it, the lion represents Maya. It represents false identification. Represents self-image with the physical body, mind, and world. And the man represents our true nature, presence, being, our spiritual being. And true nature, the self is blessed um, um, when he consumes Maya and knows it. Okay, if in other words, uh, the true nature is blessed when it consumes Maya and still true nature.
Yes.
It's blessed. It's cursed when it consumes Maya, the lion, and doesn't know it. So it's still in ignorance. It's a weird way to, metaphor, analogy, way to say it.
Yeah.
But that's what it basically points at to me. But ultimately, it's also, I think it's important to realize, ultimately, there's no distinction. They're one and the same. There's no separation. It's just different manifestation, ignorance or no ignorance.
Yeah.
Ultimately, it's the same.
Yeah, I think you nailed it, Rick. If that works for me, and I don't want to add to that because it's already a little bit kind of confusing.
They're very confusing. I mean, lion, very, very confusing. Thanks, Bill.
Yeah. I like some of the other ones, like we're heading into the easy one where the sower sows the seed, and those cool ones that are easy to follow the breadcrumbs. This one, the world, this is Cameron's what Cameron said. The world is the lion, Maya. When truly seen, it is understood. And in my mind, the world is overwhelmed. The world, man, the world is the experience of overwhelm. Jesus said, "Blessed is the lion which becomes man when consumed by man." Yeah, I like your take on it, Rick. I think I'll just stay with that. If anyone has, Angelina has something to add. Hi, Angelina.
I I didn't mean to. Well, anyway, so it's like I see the lion as the animalistic nature. And again, it's more like, ancient, how they saw it in ancient times, that the ego was sometimes seen as the animalistic nature, our kind of flesh, the desires of the flesh. And so it's like how I see it is blessed is like when the animalistic nature in us is becoming man, is like elevated to becoming the consciousness, a higher consciousness of the man, of not just the animal, but like the man. And when the man is consuming that, when the man is, controlling that and not it's controlling him. And the man is cursed when he's consumed by his own animalistic nature. And then that's what he's becoming. So in a way, you could see animalistic nature like the ego, in a way, like our more kind of flesh desires, needs, wanting, just operating from that place and not from higher level of consciousness.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. You cut right into it, and you saw things that I didn't see. And Rick didn't see. That was awesome. Thanks for adding that, Angelina. Cool. Let's move on. We have 5 minutes. Let's see if we can go through number 8. Someone want to read 8? This is a good one. This is the fisherman one. Who wants to read 8? Come on. Yeah, I agree, Mary. Angelina nailed it. Yeah, you cut right into it, man. Beautiful. Okay, I'll go with 8. And he said, the man is like a wise fisherman. And I would say he is Jesus. And he said, the man is like a wise fisherman who cast his net into the sea and drew it up from the sea full of small fish. Among them, the wise fisherman found a fine, large fish. He threw all the small fish back into the sea and chose the large fish without difficulty. Whoever has ears to hear, let him or her hear. There are, and this is Cameron's interpretation, short and sweet. There are many pretty flowers on the path up to the sacred temple. He or she who is single-minded in their desire, his or her desire for truth, ignores them and keeps walking directly towards his heart or her heart. Desire on the temple altar. Let me read. I'm not quite getting that. See if I have my, oh, I don't have my glasses. But yeah, there they are. Let me try these. There are many pretty flowers on the path up to the sacred temple. He who is single-minded in his desire for truth ignores them and keeps walking directly towards his heart's desire on the temple altar. Yeah, I just, oh, it looks like Rick has his hand up. Rick, go ahead and tell me what you got for that.
Yeah, Bill, this is just my comments. To me, it reinforces, being single-minded, love for the truth, keeping your eye on the prize, so to speak. It's not about the little fish. It's not about being distracted by, special powers or special experiences. It's being very simple-minded about the truth. And a choice that we have to make every instant over and over. And regarding the last statement, whoever has ears to hear, you see this throughout the Bible. And it's interesting because to me, he's not referring to physical ears or an individual with ears. What he's referring to is the same comment that Francis uses. He says, consciousness or awareness is that which is hearing my words. Again, he's not talking about the individual, the mind, or the ears. And I think that's an important, a thing to note, because it's used throughout the Bible. He who has ears to hear, you either get it or you don't.
Well, if you've been in satsangs, often you'll hear who's ever leading the satsang. Who can see this? Who can see what's being? Or is there understanding? Am I speaking to those who have understanding? Is there understanding? And you're just looking to am I going over your head, or is it coming in? Do I need to come in from a different maybe explanation? And so it's really, is there some clarity here?
Yeah.
And
hearing versus understanding. Yeah. Hearing versus understanding.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's funny. I said the same thing as you. Keep single-minded focus on the big fish. I say the self. Keep single-minded focus on. It's the same thing that Ramana, abide in the self, or Eckhart Tolle, stay in presence, practicing presence. Stay single-minded is what this
Yeah,
parable is. Don't be distracted by all the small fish, all the objects of experience, and the pretty, and what Cameron said, the pretty flowers on the way to
yeah.
the altar
Don't, in
of your truth.
particular, in particular, don't be distracted by your imagination, your false expectations about what you think might happen in terms of experience. And the big fish doesn't imply an objective, a finish line, or something that's going to be obtained.
Yeah,
He's talking about interest, love,
yeah,
business, just being interested in love, not a big fish in terms of catching the big one or finally getting there, so to speak.
right, right. Well, that is the end of our time together, guys and gals, and thank you for your sharing, participation, and we'll start next week on saying number 9. And what I would recommend is you just, do 5 or 10 at a time and just have that many ready to go. It doesn't look like we'll do more than 5 each week. And thank you for joining with us. And it's been awesome. See you next week. Bye-bye.